For 12 years I took sleeping pills. I say it now without pride, without shame, just as a fact that shaped my life. 12 years of nights erased, handed over to a small bottle my wife kept neatly beside my glass of water. At my age, sleep is supposed to come easily, they say. You work hard, you grow old, and rest becomes a reward. For me, sleep was something forced, measured, controlled. Every night followed the same quiet ritual. So familiar that I stopped questioning it long ago. After dinner, my wife would clear the table while I sat in my chair, listening to the sounds of the house settling down. The lights dimmed. The television went silent. She would place the pill beside me like it was nothing more than a vitamin, smile softly, and remind me not to forget. Her voice was always calm, caring, almost rehearsed. I trusted that voice. I had built my life on trusting it. The pills worked fast. Too fast, if I am being honest now. Within minutes, my thoughts slowed, my limbs felt heavy, and the world faded as if someone gently lowered a curtain. No dreams, no half-waking moments. Just darkness until morning. Back then, I told myself this was a blessing. No nightmares. No restless tossing. No thoughts about money, family, or the years slipping through my fingers. I never wondered what happened in the house after I fell asleep. I never asked why my wife stayed awake so long. I never noticed how careful she was about the timing. I was an old man grateful for rest, and gratitude can make you blind, but habits become dangerous when they replace awareness. For 12 years, I surrendered my nights without question. I didn't see how my wife always waited until I swallowed the pill. I didn't question why she watched me so closely afterward, her eyes tracking every blink, every breath. I thought it was love. I thought it was worry. I was wrong. The night everything changed did not feel important at first. It started like any other evening. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. My wife asked fewer questions than usual, her answers short, her hands moving quickly as she cleaned. When I reached for the pill bottle, my fingers slipped. The bottle hit the counter, then the floor, pills rolling in every direction like tiny white secrets. I bent down slowly, my back stiff, my knees aching. As I gathered them, I counted out of habit. 1, 2, 3. I paused. My chest tightened. There should have been one more. I searched again, running my hand across the floor, under the cabinet, near the trash. Nothing. The pharmacy was closed. I straightened up and felt a strange unease settle in my stomach. My wife noticed immediately. Her eyes flicked from my hands to the counter. "Did you take it?" she asked. I told her no, that I couldn't find one. For just a second, her face changed. The calm cracked. Fear flashed through her eyes so quickly, she probably thought I missed it. But I didn't. At my age, you learn to read those moments. She recovered fast. Too fast. She smiled, touched my arm, and told me one night without it wouldn't hurt. She said I should just lie down and relax. Her voice was steady again, but something about it felt tight, controlled. I nodded, pretending everything was fine, while a quiet alarm began ringing in my mind. That night, sleep never came. My body waited for the pill that never arrived. My thoughts stayed sharp, painfully clear. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to every sound the house made. The clock ticked loudly. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a car passed slowly, tires whispering against the road. Beside me, my wife lay still at first. Then her breathing changed. It became lighter, more alert. She shifted carefully, as if measuring every movement. I kept my eyes closed, my body still. I don't know why I pretended to sleep. Maybe part of me already knew I needed to see what came next. She slipped out of bed quietly. I heard the soft sound of her feet on the floor, the faint rustle of fabric. The bedroom door opened and closed with careful precision. Silence followed, but it was not the peaceful silence I was used to. It was tense, expectant, Minutes passed. Then more. My heart beat harder with each second. I sat up slowly, joints stiff, and listened. Somewhere down the hallway, a light clicked on. I heard movement. A low voice. My wife's voice, hushed and urgent, speaking words I couldn't quite make out. She was not alone. I was sure of it. I stood, my legs unsteady, and opened the bedroom door just enough to see a thin line of light cutting through the darkness. The house I thought I knew suddenly felt unfamiliar, like I was a guest walking through someone else's life. As I took my first step into the hallway, a cold realization settled deep in my chest. For 12 years, I hadn't just been sleeping, I had been kept asleep. I moved down the hallway slowly, each step measured, my hand brushing the wall for balance. The house felt different at night when I was fully awake, like it was holding its breath. The light at the far end spilled out from the small room we rarely used, the one my wife always said was cluttered with old boxes. I had never questioned why she kept it locked most nights. Now the door was open, just enough to let the glow escape. I stopped halfway there and listened. My wife's voice drifted toward me, low and controlled, nothing like the gentle tone she used with me. There was urgency in it, a firmness I had never heard before. Then another voice answered. A man's voice, calm, familiar in a way that made my stomach tighten, though I couldn't place it. They spoke quietly, but the silence of the house carried every word closer than they intended. I stayed in the shadows, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they would hear it. I felt foolish for spying, ashamed of myself, yet unable to turn back. For 12 years, my nights had been stolen from me. I wasn't about to retreat now. I leaned forward just enough to see into the room. The door was open wider than I expected. Inside, the light was harsh, brighter than the rest of the house. Papers were spread across the table, folders, envelopes. A laptop glowed softly. This wasn't a secret meeting born from impulse. It was organized, planned, rehearsed. My wife stood with her back to me, her shoulders tense. Across from her sat the man. He was older than I expected, not young, not careless. He looked like someone who knew how to wait. I watched my wife hand him an envelope, thick enough that it bent slightly in her grip. He accepted it without surprise. "This has to be the last time this month," she said. He almost didn't take the pill tonight. Her words landed on me like a blow. She was talking about me, about my body, my sleep, my obedience. The man nodded slowly. "You said that before," he replied. "But you always find a way." There was no threat in his voice, just certainty. As if he knew she would comply. As if she always had. My chest burned. Memories rushed back in sharp fragments. Every night she reminded me to take the pill. Every time she checked my glass. Every morning she asked how I slept, watching my face closely for signs of something going wrong. It wasn't care. It was supervision. I wanted to step forward, to demand answers, to shout her name and end the lie right there. But my body refused to move. A part of me needed to understand everything first. After 12 years of darkness, I wanted the whole truth, no matter how painful. They spoke about schedules, about timing, about how careful they had to be. My wife mentioned my age, my health, the risks. She said my name out loud, and hearing it spoken like a problem to be managed made my knees feel weak. The man listened patiently, occasionally asking questions, taking notes, as if my life were a case file. I backed away quietly, my breath shallow. My mind raced. Was this about money, control? Was I being drugged for convenience, or for something worse? I returned to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands. They trembled uncontrollably. I pressed them together, trying to steady myself. After a long while, I heard the front door open and close softly. Footsteps faded. The house went quiet again. I didn't move. I didn't lie down. I waited. Eventually, my wife returned. She slipped back into bed like nothing had happened, her breathing slow and even. I turned my face toward the wall, tears burning behind my eyes. Morning came like a cruel joke. Sunlight filled the room. My wife greeted me with a smile, asked how I slept. I looked at her and saw a stranger. Every word she spoke felt rehearsed. Every gesture felt calculated. I nodded, lied, and said I was fine. She relaxed immediately. That told me everything. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I pretended to follow the routine. I took the pills again, though sometimes I hid them under my tongue and disposed of them later. I watched her closely now. I noticed things I had missed for years. Her late-night phone calls. The way she locked certain drawers. The careful way she managed our finances, keeping certain statements out of sight. At night, when the pill didn't fully take hold, I listened. I heard the same pattern repeat. Her leaving the bed. The soft voices. The return before dawn. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. It was a system. And I was the centerpiece of it. What hurt most wasn't the secrecy. It was the realization that my trust had been used against me for over a decade. I had shared my fears, my weaknesses, my aging body with the woman I loved. And somewhere along the way, she decided those things made me manageable. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I knew that whatever truth waited for me would change everything. And once spoken, there would be no going back. So I stayed silent, and I began to plan. I became a different man without saying a word. During the day, I played the role she expected: slow, compliant, grateful. At night, I stayed awake in pieces, fighting the pull of the pills I no longer trusted. I learned how to fake sleep, how to breathe evenly, how to let my body go slack while my mind stayed sharp. It took practice. It took fear. But fear can teach an old man new habits when his life depends on it. I started with the basics. I counted pills. I marked dates in my head. I tested how much I could take without losing awareness. Some nights I took nothing at all. Other nights, just enough to dull the edge. I learned the timing of her movements, the exact moment she believed I was gone. I learned the sound of her footsteps, the pause at the door, the way she checked the hallway before turning on the light at the far end of the house. The room she used was no longer a mystery to me. I watched from a distance at first, memorizing patterns. Then, one afternoon when she went out, I forced the lock. My hands shook so badly I had to sit down afterward, my heart racing like I had run miles. Inside, I found the truth laid out in neat rows. Files, records, correspondence. Everything organized with care that bordered on obsession. That it wasn't one man. It was several. Doctors, consultants, financial handlers. All connected by one thing: me. My health, my estate. My signature. The sleeping pills weren't just to help me rest. They were to keep me predictable, unquestioning, incapable of noticing what was being decided in my name while I slept. I sat on the floor for a long time, holding a folder with my name printed across the front. Inside were reports about my condition, written in language so clinical it felt cruel. They spoke about decline, about timelines, about managing outcomes. There were notes in my wife's handwriting in the margins, calm, practical, detached, as if she were planning a renovation. Not the slow erasure of a human being. That night, I confronted the hardest truth of all. She believed she was doing the right thing. Not for me, but for the future she wanted. Control wrapped in concern. Love twisted into management. In her mind, my weakness justified everything. I didn't sleep at all after that. Instead, I began collecting my own evidence. I photographed documents. I copied files. I memorized account numbers. I wrote notes in a small notebook I hid beneath a loose floorboard in the bedroom. Each discovery sharpened my focus. Fear turned into clarity. Betrayal hardened into resolve. The man I had seen that first night appeared again a week later. This time, I followed them quietly, staying far enough back to remain unseen. They met outside the house, speaking in low voices near his car. I caught fragments concerns about timing, about my awareness, about adjusting dosages. Hearing myself discussed like a malfunctioning machine nearly broke me, but it also told me something important. They were worried. That meant something had changed. That meant my silence was no longer convincing. I realized then that I couldn't wait for the perfect moment. Whatever they were planning, it was moving forward with or without my understanding. If I stayed still, I would disappear quietly, tucked away behind paperwork and polite explanations. I had lived too long, fought too hard, to let my final years be edited out of my own life. So I did the one thing they never expected. I stopped taking the pills completely. The first nights were brutal. My body rebelled. My hands trembled. My thoughts raced in circles until dawn. But with each sleepless night, my mind grew clearer, stronger. I began waking early, before my wife, and leaving the house under the excuse of short walks. In reality, I was visiting people I hadn't seen in years. Old contacts. Professionals who remembered me not as a patient, but as a man who once knew what he was doing. I spoke carefully. I listened more than I talked. I learned just how far things had gone, how many decisions had been made in my absence. Each confirmation felt like another knife, but I welcomed the pain. Pain meant I was awake. At home, my wife grew restless. I saw it in her eyes. She noticed my questions, my hesitation at night, my sudden interest in documents I had ignored for years. She began hovering again, reminding me about my pills with a sharpness she tried to hide. The calm was cracking. One night, she confronted me gently, asking if something was wrong. I looked at her and felt a wave of sadness so deep it almost stopped me. This was the woman I had built a life with. The woman I had trusted to guard my last years. And now we stood on opposite sides of a truth neither of us could escape. I told her I was just tired. That I needed time. She nodded, but her eyes searched my face, looking for signs she could no longer control. That night, she stayed awake longer than usual. So did I. By then, my plan was already in motion. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to expose her in a fit of anger. That would give her power. Instead, I would do what she had done to me. I would let her believe she was still in control. And when the moment came, when the truth finally surfaced, it would be undeniable, clean, final. Because after 12 years of being kept asleep, I was wide awake now, and I wasn't going back. The end didn't arrive in a burst of anger or dramatic confessions. It came the same way everything else had in this house, quietly, carefully, with planning. Early one morning, after my wife left as usual, I sat alone at the kitchen table and made several phone calls I had been preparing for weeks. My voice was steady, even though my hands trembled. By the time she returned that afternoon, she wasn't walking into a conversation she could manage. She was walking into consequences. She froze the moment she saw that we weren't alone. Papers were laid out neatly, not scattered, not emotional. Just facts, dates, authorizations, medical records, financial instructions. All of it connected, all of it undeniable. She looked at me first, confusion flickering across her face, then irritation, then something much darker when she realized I wasn't confused at all. I sat there calmly, my posture relaxed, my eyes clear. For the first time in years, she couldn't read me. She spoke quickly at first, trying to regain control. She explained things the way she always had, in a tone meant to soothe and redirect. She said she was protecting me. She said she was afraid of losing me. She said she did what she thought was best. I listened quietly, not interrupting, not reacting. Somewhere deep inside, The last thread of what I thought we were finally snapped. Not in anger, but in acceptance. When the explanations ended, the silence stretched long and uncomfortable. The truth no longer needed my voice. It sat there in black and white, heavy and unmovable. I realized then that what hurt the most wasn't the manipulation or the pills or the years I couldn't remember clearly. It was knowing that my trust had been treated like a weakness instead of a bond. That night, I slept in my own bed without medication. I barely slept at all, but for the first time, I didn't feel afraid of the darkness. My thoughts were loud, sometimes painful, but they were mine. I replayed moments from the past times I had dismissed questions, ignored instincts, chosen comfort over awareness. I didn't blame myself anymore. I understood now how easily love can become control when fear is left unchecked. The days that followed were slow, deliberate, and honest. My routine changed. My mornings felt sharper. My body still carried the weight of age, but my mind felt lighter than it had in years. I took responsibility for my health, my finances, my future. I learned how much strength there still was in simply paying attention. I don't tell this story to paint myself as a hero or my wife as a villain. Life is rarely that simple. I tell it because I learned something too late, but not too late to matter. When someone takes away your awareness, even with good intentions, they take away your dignity. And without dignity, love can't survive. I lost 12 years to quiet nights I never lived. But I gained something far more important in the end. I woke up.